Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Green Team meeting of the Greater Modesto Chamber of Commerce. My name is Brendan Coffey. I'm back after several months absence. As I've been reminded that I haven't been here in a while, but I'm co-chair of the Modesto Green Team along with Chris Christensen. First thing we do is announce that we're here. Actually, my phone's buzzing right now. So let me remind everybody to put your cell phones on silent so that we don't hear that. Luckily, I did a few minutes ago. Just a gentle reminder. And then the first thing we do is remind everybody that we're here the third Thursday of every month. Everybody here in person who is enjoying our sandwiches, courtesy of the Modesto Chamber, thank you very much. You can be here in person or you can be online through Zoom. And Trish and Jolene are the people to contact about that. And we have emails too. Make sure you're on the email list. What we normally do before, and we go around the room and introduce ourselves. So we start on Zoom first. Sure. Let's do that. So I'll call out a name like Kirk. Kirk, if you can hear us, can you just say who you are and who you're with?
All right. First, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm Kirk Oatman. The company is I'm in Control. Yes, that's the name of the company. And we have what we call a right-sized building management system for small commercial buildings.
Fantastic. Thank you for coming. Remember us the third Thursday of every month and tell a friend, please. Thank you.
Good to meet you.
All right. Thank you. Raj.
Good afternoon. This is Kartik Raj. I'm with Earth Justice. Nice to meet you all.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Chris.
Chris Mendonca, G3 Enterprises.
Thank you for attending.
No problem.
Nick.
Hi, everyone. Nick Lapis with Californians Against Waste.
Thank you very much. Am I missing anybody on Zoom?
Nope. I don't.
Okay, let's start in person here. We'll go with our speaker, then work our way around.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is JD Gesson. I'm the CEO of West Coast Energy Group, and we are a landfill diversion technology and service platform company.
Hello, my name is Evan Edgar. I'm the engineer with the California Compost Coalition, representing haulers, composters, anaerobic digesters, and carbon farming.
Fantastic. And those two gentlemen are our speakers for today.
And I am Tex Roberts. I am CFO of West Coast Energy Group and JD's right-hand man.
I'm Trish Christensen, President and CEO of the Modesto Chamber of Commerce. And
I am Jolene, the Sustainability Coordinator for Modesto Chamber of Commerce.
And
George.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. George Dice, I'm a director of sales for Repsco. We're a manufacturer in.
So let me remind everybody to also silence the Zoom as well. And there will be opportunities to ask questions of our speaker as we go along, either in person or through Zoom. Am I forgetting anything? When we get started, we're going to get right to it. And I'm going to introduce JD Gesson from West Coast Biofuel. He's going to start off and I'll let you introduce Evan. Thank you. Warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. So again, just here to talk about some of the interesting transformation as pertains to the new law, SB 1383. Many people have heard about it and understand that you have to separate your food scraps at the bin and so forth. So we're here to talk about some of the environmental opportunities, some of the biomass conversion to fuels and various renewable alternative energy opportunities, and then talk about some of the mission statement as we've learned in our path working with the state and local municipalities in and throughout the counties, including, of course, our green team members, and we're all pleased to share and disseminate information after the session. So again, we're West Coast Energy. We're a socially responsible company. We work in several different renewable fuel niches, I might say, primarily the renewable diesels and biofuels, which is what we're pretty proud of our West Coast Biofuel division. It's located in McFarland, and we were able to go into a formerly abandoned produce packing plant and put life into a facility that previously didn't have any. So as a result of bringing renewable technologies and a lot of hard groundwork, we were able to navigate and receive our San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District Air Board, basically your permit and authority to construct, which allowed us to endeavor on our journey to start building out our biorefineries and our waste to energy processing equipment. With that said, down a little bit, please. So SB 1383, everybody knows, was passed back in 16, but wasn't enacted until January 1, 2022. Yeah, just a second. And the interesting portion of that is this particular law, mandate, if you will, came as a funded mandate, not an unfunded mandate, which is a very unique thing. And we're very proud of this with our governor and his budget in California, that there's actual state and local monies to deploy both landfill diversion strategies. Of course, that's what we're talking about. But some of the goals that have been set out as pursuant to these timelines, you see by 2025, 75% reduction in landfill organic waste. So that's a big number, and it's very difficult to comprehend unless you saw big piles of mountainous food out in the field and see what the size of that looks like. It's a serious issue, both from an environmental aspect with the greenhouse gas and methane escaping from the landfills. So basically, the law states that you can't landfill green waste in your organic waste, which is your food-related throwaways. So with that being the regulatory pathway, West Coast Energy, again, we're very pleased to be working as a stakeholder in and throughout the valley, all the way from Bakersfield and of course up to our friends here in Modesto and of course Stockton, to not only learn about each community's waste value chains, but also how can we help mitigate and reduce short-lived climate pollutants, which is what all this is about. So basically the methane and the CO2 and the greenhouse gases that escape from the decaying green waste and food scraps that restaurants, hospitals, other corporate facilities used to be able to throw in the dumpster. It has to go somewhere, so it ends up going to what they call material recovery facilities, and then it has to be processed from there. So that's the pathway, that's the law, that's what has to happen, and it's a statewide mandate. It's not jurisdictional, meaning every city, state, town, county, rural community has to deploy a program to comply with SB 1383. So it's a heavy lift, to be sure. So the question is, what do you do with all this waste? And it's an interesting question, and there's a few answers to it, luckily. And we're very pleased to bring you some of these possibilities. So we're here to talk about both the scope of the problem, the environmental piece, which we've laid out. What does it mean to local communities as far as job development or economic development? We mentioned that we repurposed a formerly empty produce, a big distribution plant. And so as a result of that, we're now bringing renewable fuels, clean, green, high-tech jobs to all these rural and disadvantaged communities, which don't have these opportunities to come fight for themselves in this, under the economic justice or economic equality, environmental justice. There's a lot of ways to describe this, but our whole mission at West Coast Energy, West Coast Biofuels, is how do we bring this down to the community grassroots level? So what we've been able to do is take the pathways and the mandates as laid out by the state and local municipalities. And you notice on the bottom of the triangle, hopefully you can see it, what they want you to do in order of the importance. Obviously, if we can glean any of the food from Vallarta and Statter Brothers and Sack and Save and Raley's, the Costco's, we'd like to recover that food. It's called gleaning. And between the after the shelf date and before the expiration date, there's a window there. And that food, pursuant to this law, 1383, 20% of it supposed to be recovered and distributed back out to food banks, food insecurity, and food shelters. So that's a heavy lift. That's a whole set of distribution and logistics all in itself. And in order for that 2025 goal to come into fruition, you'd have to have the buy-in from basically all the corporate, wonderful, some of the local agricultural companies. We can mention names in the Central Valley. It's really an all hands on deck. So the highest and most appropriate use would be to feed people. And that's what we're starting to do through our Labors of the Harvest food pantry program that we've launched and working with a group out of Taft. And we've been able to feed through food recovery and gleaning At the community grassroots level, we're able to feed somewhere around 11,000 families a month. It's about 60,000 tons of gleaned food that was normally going to head for the landfill that now can't, because you can't landfill it. So what are the solutions that people can take to their local towns, to their city councils, to their state assemblymen, your solid waste management people? It's an enormous regulatory food chain to navigate. We know, because we started one knuckle move at a time, and we learned through trial and error, and we've been able to come to, I would say, an overview of how these relationships work with the local city and local municipalities. How do you intertwine with them? What's the proposal? Is there a tipping fee? There's a lot of aspects that go along with complying. So we got to comply. So feeding animals is the next one. Industrial use is very interesting. Part of what West Coast Energy does is do biomass conversion technologies, which is basically valorization of the waste that was formerly going to be landfilled, that can no longer be landfilled. So that biomass has a lot of energetic value, and without getting too scientific or technical, you can make many, many renewable types of renewable fuels from the landfill waste, including electricity, renewable natural gas. You can make hydrogen, which is very popular right now. And of course, one of our sweet spots, which is our McFarland biorefinery, you're able to hopefully take that feedstock and through various processes, convert it into low carbon renewable fuels, which now you're in compliance with CARB, LCFS. These are the state fuel regulatory agencies who also have a mandate to zero carbon emissions by 2030. So all of these environmental, regulatory, policy directions, incentivizing through tax credits and incentives, all have a role to play in, for example, a renewable energy company or a startup that has a cool technology, or the environmental groups that are on this call. And so everybody has a strong role to play. And so, next slide. And so that's what we're trying to do, is bring these pieces into a valuable ecosystem, and then show and teach these various communities what to do, how do you start, what kind of technology, how much can we do? Can the community save landfill fees? Can the community lower its energy bills and so forth? So, and it's all possible. It's all possible. Here on this next slide, you have composting, which is a very interesting aspect in one of the approved uses as 1383. It's called soil amendment. Of course, we all know in the Central Valley, about 45% of America's food is grown in these valleys, including Salinas. We know, so we drive up and down the 99 and the 5 coming to these presentations and otherwise. So we see a lot of these farmers and different pistachio and almond farms and grapes. And so all of that comes back to what they call life cycle analysis, or the carbon life cycle. You're taking something that was used, it was going to the landfill, you're going to reuse, reduce, and recycle, and repurpose. So there's a fourth R in the mix here. The repurposing is, what do we do with this rich organic compost that now used to be mulch and MSW, basically municipal solid waste, but now has this highly rich in organics food scraps piece, for lack of a better term. From a farmer standpoint, you basically have taken basic ordinary compost and you've turbocharged it, you've supercharged it, you've added all the nutrients, and now it becomes highly valuable, rich, organic food for all the crops that are already growing here in the valley. So now you're carbon farming, which our next speaker will talk about, which is a whole nother business opportunity and a very important piece of the recovery program of 1383. Because as you put the organic waste and compost onto the farms, you're recreating the topsoil, which is also conserving water conservation, which we all know water in the Central Valley got a 0% allocation this year. And if you're a farmer and you've got a big corporate well, and you've got a very long straw, you're going to have water all the time. But if you're a small farmer with a couple hundred acres of avocados, grapes, and you've got a small system, you're not going to reach the water table and you got zero. So it's a big deal. Part of what we want to do is make farmers rich again. We're pretty pleased about that. And to the degree that we give them highly organic and nutritious crop soil amendment, It has a myriad of benefits, including cleaning the air quality, which is all of this is pursuant to reducing, mitigating, and offsetting low carbon emissions and diesel particulate matter. This whole thing is to clean the environment for the people that live in these communities. There's rail running up and down the 99 and the 5, and it runs on diesel. There's over-the-road trucking. We've all seen thousands and thousands and thousands of heavy-duty Class 8 18-wheelers hauling all sorts of goods and services, including produce and other timely market value items, to and from the distribution centers. Those loads basically are all carbon footprints. And what we would like to do is take something that's rich and abundant and multi-purpose it pursuant to what the government, to the state, in this case, SB 1383, has mandated. And that is divert, utilize, and reuse. So next slide. So part of it is this goes right back to the farms for soil amendment. And of course, composting with other liquid fertilizers is much more environmentally friendly. And our next speaker will speak about that as well. So on fast forward, okay, so we have landfill, we've got organic mixed food waste. It's piling up at the landfills. There's dozens and dozens of material recovery facilities. What's next? So part of what we've taken upon ourselves in a pilot project fashion is to develop some what we call modular skids. And we believe the era of big refineries is over. And we don't think that the permitting is going to be inducive to crude oil cracking facilities. So what's the future to help offset? And so one of the approved uses for SB 1383 is biomass conversion technology, which is what West Coast Energy does. It's basically a few different ways to, there's a lot of different systems on the market, and we could spend a whole nother session on technology and systems investigations. I'll summarize it by saying there's mechanical, there's thermal, and then there's chemical recycling. So there's a couple, and inside those divisions, there's a number of different technologies. Most people have heard of pyrolysis, plasma gasification, there's microwave plasma. There's all sorts of opportunities to take pieces of technology and small micro modular skids and do a decentralized processing project where you put the equipment out where the landfill diversion is. So with that being said, we have a couple of examples and graphics, and we're welcome to share more detail and take questions. But what you see here is a gas to liquid. Basically, you can take the landfill biomass and through some pre-treatment and processing, you can turn that landfill waste into a synthetic gas, almost similar to a renewable natural gas, a syngas, and then you're able to process that further or upgrade it further into, say, renewable diesel for the highway trucks, renewable ag fuel for the farm machinery, and of course, power generation. You can do quite a few things for it, including making other green chemicals that go right back into the ecosystem, such as methanol, ammonia, and hydrogen, which are very popular future fuels, we feel. Not ready for showtime today, but we think is quickly on the horizon as the Central Valley Corridor builds out its battery energy storage infrastructure, which includes EV charging places for everybody to charge their EV cars and trucks. And then, of course, hydrogen is a long ways off. You'd be hard pressed to find a hydrogen station anywhere that's economically viable. So we think that's more for the power generation. But suffice it to say, out of your landfill, you can pull all of these waste value fractions, gas, liquid, energy, and they can be used to offset what we'll call coal-fired or fossil fuel-based energy, which is all of your power plants and so forth. So it's part of what CARB, California Air Quality Resources Board, has set out scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions mandates. They've set out landfill methane measurement emissions mandates. They put a very narrow band rule, I would say. You can't bury your food scraps. You can't take your lawn leaves and bury them. So they pretty much told you you're not going to do it without giving the solution. In our world, we would have put the solution and then say, hey, can we help you solve that problem? But this is how the government, we feel, is nudging. And we're very pleased that we're on the cutting edge and that we've basically caught a lot of the early knowledge based on 1383 by doing it the old fashioned way, reading a 132-page policy report. It's not fun. I don't recommend it for anybody, but we do it only because we're trying to comply with the incentives. There's tax credits, there's offsets, and pursuant to the equipment, there's a lot of state, and I always want to mention funding because project people always wonder about how do you pay for these items. So we're looking at small, micro, modular, decentralized and rural and disadvantaged communities. We want to put this stuff where it creates 30 jobs in Pixley, 30 jobs in Tehachapi, 30 jobs in Coalinga, 30 jobs and just start creating little renewable community development hubs. One of the big pushes recently in Orange County and LA was the designation of the first, California's first hydrogen hub. What that means is all the stakeholders that have something to do with that particular energy source, the tanks, the compressors, how do you transport it? How do you create it? Does a gas line transfer? Same thing here needs to happen. All the stakeholders have to come together. I have to be able to go to the city planning and pull a permit. The air board has to say, yes, you can hook up your skid to process. The landfill has to say, yep, you can take all of our garbage. What's it look like? So there's all these nuances to try to help what has already been set out as a law, but in order to facilitate really what comes down to ordinance, complying with ordinances. So with that being said, next slide. These are some of the products that you can make from we'll call it the post-consumer waste value chain. Some of the advantages, like we list them out here, and we're happy to share this PDF. But if you're a renewable energy company, or you're looking to get into the sector, or you're an environmentalist, or a climate believer, or a climate policy lobbying group, or any of these ancillary pieces that have something to do with what's being said, you can look at these bullet points and you can pick out probably 2 or 3 that you can start with today. And pursuant to that would be, if you're a farmer, can I get this rich organic compost and receive carbon farming credits or soil sequestration credits, which Evan will talk about. Can we take this and become a renewable fuels, or we have some other type of light manufacturing, but we'd like to pivot and be able to process these waste to energy products? How do we do it? Well, you come talk to West Coast Energy and we give you, this is the ones we've investigated. These ones have technology readiness levels 8, 9, and 10. These are the ones you can, put a modularly deploy, or whatever your business model is. And of course, we have done a lot of research and investigation on how to finance a renewable project, who will finance them, what the bank will say if you go try to ask them for a loan on one, and so forth and so on. So we can probably help a lot of other folks understand what's being asked, how can we comply, who would help us comply. And so we've envisioned West Coast Energy Group, rolling our platform, if you will, up from Bakersfield up to, say, Fresno, Stockton, and all of the surrounding communities in Stanislaus, Kern, San Joaquin, and the various counties, because everybody needs the solution. But could you imagine, and I'll just end on this, so we envision that, they're saying 2025, and it's 2022, half's gone, time flies, and 2024 will be here before we know it. So we're starting today. We don't have all the answers. We don't know 100% every little molecule is going to be this, that, and the other, or what the future regulations might come in addition. And it's always the unknown of what government may do or may change. So, but we do understand that it's a big problem. And, they say methane that escapes from landfill. They flare. I don't know if people know this, but right now they flare every single landfill of a certain caliber in California. And basically you don't see it. It's odorless, it's silent, it's clear, it's being flared. So that gas that they're flaring is just like a chemical or a refinery cracking crude oil. They're flaring the flue gas or the after gas, tail gas, if you will. What we want to do is capture that, cut it off before it's being created, because it's 86 times worse for the ozone and the climate respects than regular CO2, for instance. So we believe it's an all the above strategy, where it's not renewable diesel versus hydrogen versus renewable natural gas or other products or ethanol. We think it's an all the above strategy. And we like what CARB is doing by, in LCFS, which is the Low Carbon Fuel Standard Agency. We like what they're doing because they're opening up what's possible. And they're kind of letting like a toolbox, letting you tinker with things, twist a couple knobs, here's some matching grant money. And this is how it ignites. But we're very pleased and we'll take any follow-up questions. But I'd like to introduce Evan Edgar from the California Compost Coalition, an absolute bookworm of knowledge of all things compost. Evan?
Hi, I'm Evan Edgar from the California Compost Coalition. I'm all hat, no cow, and no dairy RNG. I don't represent dairy. I know that environmental justice communities are having a big problem with dairy, but I'm an urban cowboy. I'm an urban waste guy. So anything urban, from a gelatin collect for Lottie and hydraulic scavengers, those are my peoples. So we have all types of responsibility under 1383. And the law was passed in 2016, but it took them 4 years to pass regulations. Now we're in 2022, it's supposed to start, but every body year, so 2023 with SB 619, and then enforcement is going to happen in 2024. But it is a huge, huge lift. We're talking about 100 new facilities, about $3 billion for compost and anaerobic digestion. So it's a huge lift. So one thing happened in 2022, and with a lot of help from Nick Lapis at Californians Against Waste, he's a policy wonk in Sacramento, that we got $60 million for local government. So when it comes to SB 1383, it's on local government, but it can delegate it to the franchise haulers, and then they can pick different technologies to deal with a feedstock. So having $60 million spread around the local government was a big help for them to start the party. Plus, there was another $170 million in different grants. This fall, it's coming out. There'd be $3 million in grants for compost and anaerobic digestion coming out for shovel-ready facilities, and that's $3 million a clip. I'm in a valley because I've been going up and down the valley because I got 10 projects from Tulare all down to Ventura over to Kern. So $3 million go a long way. Each facility costs between 10 to 12 million for covered area static pile for compost, and 25 million for anaerobic digestion. So we got a lot of expense, $3 billion. And what we're seeing out there already to implement 1383 on the ratepayer, just instead of taking to a landfill with a guy in a dozer and throwing it away, that's pretty cheap. But it's a lot of impact to the environment. A lot of methane is leaked out. Methane's landfills are super emitter. There was NASA did a study with a bunch of drones, and it's worse than we ever thought before how much methane escapes from the landfill. So to pay for it, to do it right, create all the green jobs and technology that create fuel instead of digging up coal and oil, we can make fuel right out of the feedstock that goes to the landfill. It's a circular economy. To implement it, we're seeing rate go about 20% at the residential level, statewide, phased in for 5 years. So the residential going to be paid extra 20%. Commercial side has lagged behind. It's a bigger lift for the chamber issues on for the restaurants and stuff. This would be like a 30% rate increase in order to take care of the food waste, commercial food waste. That's a statewide average, phase in with 5 years, makes 1383 work. So it is a big lift. It's a partnership with local government and a private sector. And we call it, this is a circular economy. We had sustainability, people talk about that. We had recycling, we had triple bottom line, but the latest buzzword is circular economy. And people treat it like a buzzword, but we don't. We actually been doing it for a while. So what we don't export organics out of state. We don't send bales of organics to China, like paper and plastic. All organics stay in California. And from that, we make renewable natural gas, make compost, and kind of the same truck, the garbage truck that picks up the commercial organics. Within 30 days, that anaerobic digestion facility, it makes a carbon negative renewable natural gas. It goes back in the same truck. Now, who remembers Back to the Future Part 2? The banana peel DeLorean? Oh, we got the pizza box in the garbage truck, and that's working quite well. So we're on track to do more of that. By 2025, there'll be 120 million diesel gallon equivalents of renewable natural gas come on the market. All these projects are in play right now, and the average carbon intensity is a minus 100. Diesel is plus 100. We want to talk about CO2 per megajoule. That's what the carbon intensity scale is, about 100.85 for diesel, 88 for CNG. But when you get down to RNG, we're minus 100. We're carbon negative now. Not in the future, being neutral, doing this now. And some of the fuels that JD is talking about with organic feedstocks and with offsets, you can be in at least carbon neutral, they be carbon negative. So taking waste products, and one thing in the Central Valley that is happening with the San Joaquin Valley APCD, they're phasing out ag burning for the next 5 years. All the air quality is pretty bad for everybody from asthma. So the whole valley suffers. I spent 6 years in Bakersfield and I'm still suffering. I love Bakersfield. But one thing about it is that there's been $180 million, no more open burning. All that orchard waste, all that clean biomass. We got places to make fuel instead of going over to Saudi and talking to the president, talking to the prince to open up the tap. We can open up our own tap by using all this biomass. So there's a whole opportunity. The forest sector, 180 million dead trees. Another supply for all your biomass fuel. That's great stuff. So it's a great opportunity, and that's implementing the short-lived climate pollutants, and all that black carbon that comes off the forest is a short-lived climate pollutants. Diesel, that black carbon is short-lived climate pollutants, that thing. And the only way you can bend the climate curve over the next couple of years is going after short-lived climate pollutants. That should be the focus of any plan, especially the carb scoping plan. So what's going on in Sacramento right now? The California Air Resources Control Board has floated a scoping plan. Every 5 years they put it out. Since Arnold Schwarzenegger signed the whole 61 clean air and clean water, and he signed the bill and he does great work. But every 5 years, this plan got to be updated. This plan looks towards 2045, be carbon neutral in 2045. And they have all types of things that's hotly debated. Comments are due June 24th. There's a CARB board meeting next Thursday. Everybody's going to be yelling at CARB. The environmental justice committee is coming out in droves. There's a lot there, a lot of moving parts within it. So some of the key tenets of the scoping plan is a low carbon fuel standard. Everybody loves it. A lot of incentives. We have to 10% less carbon in 2020 and 20% less carbon by 2030. It's a great program. Good incentives. We like it. Another one is the RPS, the Renewable Portfolio Standard, to be 33% renewable energy by 2020, and then by 2030 it's 50%, but by 2045, 100% carbon neutral. So that's the Renewable Portfolio Standard. We talked about short-lived climate pollutants. Other one's natural working plans. The forest sequesters a lot of carbon. Everybody talked about all the incentives of the forest. What's bigger than the forest is soil. Soil, not big oil. You can use that.
Good, I like that.
The soil can
Write that down.
do a lot of carbon and can sequester a lot of carbon. So, and so there's a lot of opportunity to get carbon credits. I'm working up in YOLO Land and Cattle, or the YOLO Carbon Project. Up in Sacramento, I got Van Vleck Ranch. Down in Ventura, I got Limoneras and Maricopa Farms. We're gonna do some carbon farming down in Kern County. In Merced County, we have Falls farming. So all these ranchers are stepping up to sequester carbon. The biggest driver is water. We're in a mega drought right now. So by using compost, we're saving 30% water. That alone is worth the price of compost, let alone the Ukrainian potash and phosphorus that put in fertilizer to the roof. So now it's a great time for compost because of you don't have to buy fertilizers, and the stuff we make is organic compost, certified organic compost for the Grimway farm, to the organic carrots and the panel grapes and organic grapes, to Limonera, the avocado and orchards, the Sunkus family. We do a lot of organic compost there. So we're doing carbon projects statewide in every county. So that's a great opportunity. And we're working on carbon credits for the farmer. And there's different protocols in a voluntary market. It's booming. A lot of Apple and Amazon buying all these voluntary carbon credits up to have the farmer benefit from that. To pay for the compost haul and spreading is a benefit to the valley, the great Central Valley. So we want to keep organics out of the landfill into the soil. And we want to be able to make low carbon fuel. But this carb scoping plan has a couple of curveballs. Everybody loves their ZEVs, zero emission vehicles. And I'm the guy that stands up and says zero emission vehicles aren't zero. They're not. The battery, the charge battery is plus 25 on the ground. Diesel's 100, plus 25 the grid power, and then to have the life cycle analysis on the battery, it's another plus 40 to 60. So it's up there with CNG. So, but everybody's lying to the public. Zero emission vehicles, and then down in Fresno, a lot of people want their free ZEVs, and it's going to clear up the air. And there's a lot of benefit for ZEVs or passenger vehicles, but I'm a heavy duty guy. I'm a heavy duty guy with regards to having duty cycle, charging stations, and grid reliability. It doesn't work for the heavy duty sector. Plus, the ZEV economy is not the circular economy. What we have going on in organics is a circular economy. Prove it. What ZEVs is, you got to dig up the Congo with child labor, take it to China with more human rights violations, and then take the ZEV battery to California. And that's a linear economy without any end of life. So what I'm doing next year, we're sponsoring a bill called the European Battery Directive, that these batteries for ZEVs got to be able to source it correctly. We can't dig up the Congo and not take the methane out of the landfills. It makes no sense to shift that environmental burden on the Congo or the lithium triangle in South America or the First Nations of Canada, digging up that nickel. It doesn't make any sense at all. But CARB spent $6 billion on the governor's executive order to invest in ZEVs, and it's a farce. It may work for passenger vehicles, but in the heavy duty sector, no way. So we're making a big play on that. We don't want to disrupt the circular economy of today for a false promise of carbon neutral in 2045. You think that all we do is that 1383, you have that chart up here. We feed hungry people. So we feed people. And then we feed animals. Then we feed the tank with regards to RNG. Then we feed the grid with electricity. Then we feed the soil with compost. But we don't feed the landfills. And we don't dig up the Congo. Everything's locally sourced, responsibly sourced. That's what we do. And we want to keep on doing that. But CARB is saying, no, that's not good enough. Even though we're near zero NOx in our fleets, carbon negative fuel, net zero greenhouse gas facilities, organic compost with zero waste principles. You think that we should win an award, we should be the zero heroes. But no, can I use that? Yeah. We're not winning those. We get good grants. I gotta thank Power Cycle to invest in AD, but as part of it, there's a local government procurement. They gotta buy back. Local government either gotta buy compost, mulches, RNG or bioenergy. And Nick at California Gets Waste is working on a bill this year, AB 1985, to give more flexibility to local government. Have more portfolio inside of there instead of just RNG that maybe some of these other low carbon fuels could apply. So we're playing that out. I think that local government needs flexibility on their portfolio. So, and I've been in front of Environmental Justice Committee 5 times telling them all this. I have no problem standing in front of Environmental Justice Committee and tell the truth. But a lot of people in Environmental Justice Committee have bad air quality in Fresno, and somehow this money is going to give them free ZEVs in Fresno. And trying to say, what about those kids in the Congo? And where's environmental justice for all? So I got some people thinking about it. Do we get our free ZEVs in the Congo and sell out the kids in the Congo? I don't know, EJAC. They haven't answered the question yet. I pose it to them, give them facts, 25 references from Amnesty International, United Nations, United States Labor Report. It's documented quite well, but silence of the lambs. What's going on with EJAC and CARB? They don't want to hear the truth. They can't handle the truth. We have a code red for humanity, and a code red is that you got to tell the truth. You got that from a few good men and women. So CARB can't handle the truth, but we're here to talk about the truth. I can take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions in the room or in Zoom for either one of the gentlemen?
Thank you both. That was a wonderful presentation.
Feel free to unmute and chime right in.
Yeah, feel free to unmute and ask any questions from the room. I know we had real quick, we had a person come in late. Can you introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, my name is Robert Laughlin. I'm Vice President of Business Development for MedTech Recycling. We do electronics recycling. We're based out of Gilroy, but we're nationwide. We've got a facility in Salt Lake City, one in Denver, one in Massachusetts, one in the Carolinas. And we're dealing with a bunch of the batteries he was just talking about from all these clean vehicles, so.
The recycling for those is an interesting topic as far as chemical recycling and other ways to handle that. Back down to its base elements, then to put it back into the same industry that reprocess them. But the technology, I think, is maybe lagging just at that.
It is, and we've been working with, I mean, our clients are Apple, Samsung. We've been in business since 1968, so we've been around a lot. And every one of them has a circular economy goals. But the biggest thing keeping those goals from being achieved are the OEMs themselves. I mean, when we talk about recycling batteries and phones, it used to be easier because they were detachable from the phones. I sat in on multiple board meetings where we had their engineers and multiple recyclers trying to put together the best ideas to create devices that would lend themselves towards a circular economy. Those were some of the things they came up with, making it faster to process by separating the batteries, obviously making the batteries smaller so they had less of an impact. And Apple responded by gluing the batteries into the devices to make them harder to remove. And they did that because it's easier to replace that battery and keep the phone. That's not good for new sales. So they glue the battery in, so you cycle through a new device. That's sending more of them through the cycle, right? So you're fighting with profit, and that's what it comes down to. Is anytime you're up against profit, generally profit's going to win. So
From the biggest companies in the world.
correct, yes.
So what's the thing about the European battery directive? There's three things. One, it sources it correctly, I talked about. You have to have environmental and labor laws, wherever they source the material from, lithium, the nickel, the cadmium. Okay, number two, you got to have the carbon intensity verified by a third party. My firm, we're a bunch of engineers, and we took European Union information on battery manufacturing, and we did the math.
Right.
From, we converted over from European talk to carb talk, and it's about 60 to 80.
Right.
Is the carbon intensity. So that's got to be disclosed. It's not a free lunch. It's not a zero emission vehicle, all types of the tailpipe versus the life cycle. Right. And the third part, end of life recycling. You've got to have an end of life recycling. So the European Battery Directive does all that. They adopted just this year. Right. I think California needs to do it, and then the rest of the nation.
And generally, that's anymore. What I like about the way our company is structured is our headquarters is in California. Whenever we implement internal rules, right, for processing and so forth in California, we automatically push it out like McDonald's, right, to all of our facilities. And that puts us ahead of most of those states in the other 4 states that we're operating in because of California compliance, because we're usually a lot more intense. It makes it a little harder to do business sometimes, but it kind of allows us to lead the nation in what we do.
Good point, because next week I fly to Idaho to speak up in Washington State, having a conference in Idaho, and they just adopted the 1383 for the state of Washington, but 5-year delay. And so I go up there all the time to Washington Refuse Recycling Association, but out there, they're in shock about how do we implement it. So
right.
What happens in California doesn't stay in California.
That's correct. Exactly. It has an influence.
So out of curiosity, what are you doing with the recycled batteries now? What do you do with them?
What we do, we use a couple different battery recyclers. There's one down in Georgia we use, and then a couple others. And basically what they're doing is they're taking the batteries, they're processing them down, they grind everything up, they're extracting the lithium out. We're R2 certified, which and we have a zero landfill policy. So everything that comes through our facility is 100% of it, or we strive for 100. We usually hit around 99%. But it's getting processed, and they're basically extracting the lithium and the lead and everything back out for reuse. So it's mostly certified. Right? So it's not, again, a perfect answer, but at least we're taking stuff that's already been mined out of the Congo, right? Instead of having to go get more of it, we're at least offsetting that by a little bit. So and it looks like it's becoming a little bit more of a thing, right? There's more companies out there. Every year we hear of a new company starting out that's looking at getting into reconditioning batteries so that they can give them a new life by reconditioning. Some of them, when they are true end of life, processing them down and extracting those components from those, primarily the lithium, that's the big one, right? Is getting that lithium and these other metals out of there and reusing those so they don't have to be remined, and also so we don't landfill.
Absolutely. Tremendous opportunity. Congratulations on your long-term success.
Well, thank you.
Wonderful. There is a company out of San Francisco called Redwood Technologies, which is a spin-off of one of the Apple.
I do with Redwood.
Yeah, so they're the ones that I think are leading that pathway for that
Right.
recycling, and we can talk offline, but we have a few different pieces of technology that
My bad.
handle that type of e-waste, and
Right.
it might be something we could share and collaborate on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
pilot.
Would
So
love to.
very good, thank you.
Mentioning other technologies, we're also working with technologies to convert plastic bottles and plastic products into renewable fuel. We're also working with technologies to convert used tires into renewable fuels also. So it's not just landfill waste that we're concerned with. Of course, that's the top of our list, but there's other types of waste that need to be addressed that we're looking into addressing right now. And we found the technologies that is going to allow us to convert plastic bottles and used tires into renewable fuels, which is real exciting because currently China does not take any more of our plastics for them to just dump into the Pacific Ocean. So we can keep them in California and process them into renewable fuels.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we have the green team. That was a great example of discussion. This is why we want you here every third Thursday of the month. Tell a friend, remember that, please. This is what we strive for. We appreciate all that. Any other questions before I move on real quick? We're coming up against the hour. Thank you very much to both of you. Appreciate that. This will be online, this entire presentation. So you can share that. We appreciate that. Now we're at the portion where we do what we call the 30-second infomercials. If there's something you want to promote, something you want to talk about with your own company or something that's going on in the community, we give you 30 seconds or thereof to share. So I want to give that portion to the group or anybody online as well. Anybody want to share anything with the group? We over here.
Minds are full of information.
Okay, well, with that, anybody, yes,
I was
Chris.
just waiting to
Oh,
make sure
sorry,
everyone
sorry.
else went. Don't cut me off.
Okay, I'll let the CEO go. All right, go ahead.
I will take the moment to share that we are hosting our inaugural sustainability symposium. We're doing that 2 weeks from yesterday. We are building up our own lineup of speakers. We've had a few locals that we want to bring in. We're highlighting some of the businesses such as Repsco that we've green certified through the California Green Business Network Stanislaus program. Jolene is our coordinator for that. We're a little young in the process compared to Stockton, but they are where we're shadowing and learning from. And Lyndon is an ace between both. And so he's our partner in this process. We're learning and finding great success in it. So greatly appreciate this is the most policy-driven conversation I think we've had. And I've got other people with county and city like, dang it, how do I get them here to hear this? So when he said it'll be online, it'll be on our website, probably Monday or Tuesday. Under programs, under Stanislaus Green Team, we have all of our meeting videos are there now. So appreciate that you were here. Anyone interested in being a host of these meetings helps us offset the cost of our lunch. We're taking sponsorships for that. But the event itself, we have sponsorship opportunities. Many of them come with an opportunity to have an info table at the event. If you would like to do so, it'll be held at Seasons on McHenry. So we're looking for attendees and sponsors and things that you'd like to just share and give out at the event. You're welcome to do that. So if you want more information on that, let me know. And yes, for those in the room, there's there's
Yeah, flyers.
little event packets right there for you.
Great.
So
I was hoping you'd cover that. Fantastic.
you were trying to cut me off.
Right, we'll really look forward to seeing you there again 2 weeks from yesterday.
Absolutely. And really appreciate your time and you gentlemen joining us. I know I've seen you at Repsco before. She went this year, I went the year prior. So I knew when I saw you walk in, I've heard him. And greatly appreciate that you shared so much information with us today. And I hope you enjoyed lunch and come back and see us, as Lyndon said, third Thursday of every month.
Third Thursday of every month. With
Back
that,
to you.
we'll wrap it up and remind you that our next meeting will be July 21st, also a Thursday, of course. And Casey Hogue from Serotonin will be our speaker. Thank you for attending. Tell a friend or two. See you next month.
Thank you.